we're going to keep it real. Yeah, we're going to talk about stuff that that affects all of us. And you all know Sarthak. You've probably seen some of his content. But I want to start with the concept of FIRE, right? Everybody's heard about financial independence, retire early. But Sarthak, I want to ask you, you're hearing this a lot more now. Our parents didn't talk about it. Parents worked till they're 60, retired comfortably now. But you're hearing FIRE now. Why is that?
I think it's because a lot of people have realized that, working is very different from just being able to earn money to meet their livelihood. I think working today is all about joy. What really gives you fulfillment, what you really want to do, you want to leave a legacy, you want to have fun while you're on this planet, right? And I think in that context, financial independence becomes important, because I do realize there are a lot of people who would need some amount of money coming in just to be able to meet their basic needs and save enough to be able to retire. And that financial freedom where they can do exactly what they wish to do. If they want to take 2 months off and just relax and think of what is going to give them fulfillment in life ahead, so be it. So I think the idea of just wanting to buy control over people's time is a beautiful thing, right? And why not? It ties into Maslow's hierarchy, where your food and shelter is taken care of, you're just looking for what you want to do.
But that's a powerful concept, the ability to control your own time. And I don't think it means that you quit your job if you have a certain amount of money. You keep doing what you want to do. And I think only a few people in the crowd did put their hands up when they said they wanted to retire early, right? So people want to work for a while. But what I see also is this need to get there quickly, this desire and the urge to earn money very quickly. Are you seeing that as well?
100%. And I think it's both positive, and I wouldn't say as much negative. I think it just goes to show where India's reached after all these decades, because the generation that came before us didn't even have that option. So those aspirations, those dreams didn't exist. And today, India, the leadership, the entire environment and the economy has reached at a point where people can dream. And very honestly, when you look at economic data, back in the 70s was actually the best time to be going into the US. And the 20 years after that is what people would call the American dream. Similarly, when you think about it, in the 2000s was the perfect time to actually be in China and ride the wave of the next 2 decades, which has made China what it is today. And to be honest, India right now is exactly at that per capita income and absolutely at that inflection point where people should be dreaming, because only when they do dream will they really be able to capitalize on what our economy is going to bring for all of us over the next 2 decades. And I am excited, and I'm glad all of them are excited.
So that's a powerful concept, and please listen to this carefully. I wish that somebody had told me this when I was 2022 to start your SIP, start your investments right now, because you want to take advantage of that. But I do want to ask you about a concept that you've spoken about, 4 levers to wealth, right? You want to define that, because you've also said that people tend to go to the last lever first, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Correct. I mean, I would say whenever you think of finance and optimizing your wealth, there are 4 levers. It always starts with the kind of income you earn. That's the first step. Moves on to your expenses, which is what kind of lifestyle you live. That leads to your savings, and the third thing that eats out of your savings are actually taxes. And the fourth thing, whatever is left, is you actually invest. And unfortunately, a lot of people tend to obsess a lot about where to invest their money in the early ages, when ideally, when you think of effort to return ratio, I think really optimizing in the early ages on how to increase your income, which is directly related to upskilling, will actually have much better outcomes in wealth creation. So I think figuring out where to invest is necessary, But if I were in my 20s and I had to pick, I would probably look at what are the skills which are necessary, which would just immediately help me increase my income, and that would have a much larger impact on my wealth creation journey.
Important point that you're making there, because we're speaking today. I don't know how many of you have looked at NDTV, Profit, NDTV, or read the news, or seen what Donald Trump posted, or what you know, the H-1B issue, the fact that it's going to be tougher in the near term, at least if nothing changes, for Indian IT workers to go to the US. So the reason I bring this up is that already with artificial intelligence, with so much changing in the digital landscape, we're not really certain about the outlook beyond the age of 45, particularly people in the software space. How do you deal with that uncertainty? Because you tie that with skilling yourself, upskilling yourself constantly, and investing in yourself early on. How do you ensure that you're not left behind?
I think first is even understanding what do you want to be upskilled in. If I had to really bet on certain industries or knowledge of the future where a lot of wealth can be created, I would say think about it as A, B, C, D, E. When I say that, I mean A, of course, is AI and artificial intelligence. B, I would say, is biotechnology. C, I would say, is crypto and blockchain, which is a wave which is going to come back again, and very wildly so. D would be for drones and robotics, and E would be for energy transmission. And I think anyone today who has to pick on which industries to get into and where to upskill, if they just think about this and can possibly expose themselves to what is happening in these industries, maybe on a YouTube or on the internet, you don't need to do an expensive course about it. At least it will put you in the right mind frame of thinking on what are the skills of the future. And that could be a great start. And you mentioned H-1B, right? And what's happened today, for people who may not have read the news yet, is that yesterday President Trump of the United States mentioned that for all H-1B workers in the US, the US is going to impose a fee of $100,000 annually that the employer would have to pay if they have a foreign employee. Which means, can you imagine, for every Indian who's working in the US at a Microsoft, at an Amazon, these companies would have to pay close to 88 lakh rupees every year just to hire Indian talent. And 71% of Indians are part of that H-1B, which essentially means if this really goes through, a lot of very talented Indians are going to come back to our country.
Which is a good thing, and there are opportunities as well. So that's an important point to understand. But I do want to ask you very quickly, which is, we started with get rich quickly and the idea that a lot of people want to get there faster. But you say that the middle ground is better, whereas generations in the past were more conservative. I know my dad went all out and invested in the Employee Provident Fund. He went as much as he could. He didn't invest in equity till he was 65. But then people today are trading derivatives, they're investing in equity. What, according to you, is the middle path? How would you go about it?
Personally, my portfolio is just one-third into gold, into equities, and into real estate. And when I say that, I know real estate has come in much later in my life, much closer to where I am right now. But if you're starting off early, both gold and equities are great to start with. And when I mention equities, I must personally confess, I don't pick stocks. I mean, I'm very happy to be investing in the index and getting close to 12-13% per annum for an extraordinarily long period of time, because I do go by Mr. Warren Buffett's philosophy where time in the market is much more important than timing the market. And I feel if I had to really study and pick stocks, I think all that time I rather spend in upskilling myself, and that may create a lot more value in my life.
Would that work for everybody though?
I think it definitely can. And you know, all financial planning essentially stems from what are you really saving for in your life. And I would say for people, if they're really saving for a retirement at a 40 and you're at 25 at the moment, right? You've still got 15 years to really make money.
What would you make in 15 years if you were getting 13% or 14%?
Oh, I'll give you a simple example. There's a very simple thumb rule to say, which is called the 15-15-15 rule. Yeah? And it says if you save and invest 15,000 rupees every month for the next 15 years, and it gives you about 15% per annum, you'll add up to about 1 crore at the end of that 15-year period. But can you imagine if that number of 15,000 were to keep increasing every year, as you get upskilled, as you earn more, that number can actually be very close to your retirement amount. Because how much money does a person need to retire in India? I have a formula for it, which is, you need $1 million for India, 2 million for the UAE, 3 million for the US, and 4 million for anywhere in the world. So I'm very happy to hear numbers like 5,000 crores today. But
and
to be honest,
$100 billion.
yeah, and $100 billion. And God bless you. And I really wish that is the ambition of our nation. And we all should hope to get there someday. But 55 crores should be more than sufficient for you to retire anywhere in the world.
Okay, fantastic. Hopefully we've gotten you started, or at least gotten you thinking about how you're going to get started. But I do have to ask you about your own personal journey, and pretty much the last question, right? You're a chartered accountant, you're an investment banker, you're an educator. There must have been some moment in your life where you questioned your decisions and you said, okay, this is that moment you need to pump yourself up. What was that hum karke dikhate hain moment for you?
Oh, for me, I think it definitely comes from a bit of privilege. But the first bet that I took with all the money that I had saved, working for about 5-6 years, is I decided to invest in a good education at a good institute. And despite having done my CA, I went to ISB and I put that money, and I know it's an expensive education, and I put that money and I took that bet on myself, and I think it's really paid off in a lot of ways. And even today, when I think of my work, I like to not define myself as I'm a CA or I'm a financial advisor. I think you never know, 5 years later I could be a spiritual guru, because I would love to look at myself as a malleable personality, and my interests would change with time, and I would hope I can keep changing my profession with time.
Is there a Ferrari in the offing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we can say, the monk who sold his Ferrari. All right, Sarthak, thanks so much for taking the time. Pleasure having you. Big round of applause, please.